Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Putnam, KG9V, and a member of the York County Amateur Radio Society, YCARS. Today, I will be presenting an overview of the Federal Emergency Management Administration, FEMA, training library. The presentation will also include several how-tos in order to make your training experience more productive. Let's get started. Today's presentation topic will cover 6 areas. We'll be talking about meeting expectations, the overview of the FEMA training library, a list of acronyms, module registration tips, highlights from selected training modules, and lastly, the exam and certification process. So let's answer the question, why is training important? Well, first, there's the foundation of the Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Service, RACES. It was developed as a standby civil defense radio service governed by the FCC. This is the foundation of where we draw our heritage to for civil defense and community preparedness support. Our amateur radio community aligns well with this service obligation, because we have a specific set of skills and expertise and resources that can support emergency situations. We all have broad backgrounds that strengthen the capabilities of emergency management, and we're all dedicated to our community for public service. Second and most important on here is when we partake in training, we demonstrate our competency, which is critical to our hobby. It's all important as we learn and go through our licensing process and become competent in the various licenses we obtain. Well, similarly, this is an education and training where we'll practice some drills and exercises in order to become more competent in emergency management communication. The FEMA training modules are vast. There's many resources out on the training website, but we're going to focus today on 2 primary training modules of the 4 that are recommended for taking by YCARS. These 2 modules are the Introduction to Incident Command System and the Response to Incident Command System. What is that initial response? Here's a quick overview of the 2 modules that we'll cover, and this is the course objective that's included in these modules. At the completion of the first module, you'll be able to explain the principles and basic structure of the ICS, the Incident Command System. You'll be able to describe the NIMS management characteristics that are the foundation of the ICS. You'll describe the ICS functional areas and the roles of the incident commander and command staff. You'll be able to describe the general staff roles within ICS and identify how the National Emergency Management System characteristics apply to ICS. Now, the primary audience for this is really anyone that is involved in emergency planning or response or recovery efforts. So all of us are in that population of people who can take the training. It's estimated that the course can take 2 hours to complete, and you can do this on your own time, plus or minus whatever you feel comfortable with. As you take the training, you can stop and start again, or you can complete it all in one setting. It's entirely up to you. The next course, IS 200, talks about responding, the initial response to an incident. And this is really very critical because, as you're aware, sometimes the initial response is what's most important after a situation occurs. For those of you who have served in our branches of our armed forces or civil defense, you'll appreciate the structure of this process, which I believe yields greater order and accountability. The course objectives in this second module, you'll be able to describe the National Incident Management System characteristics as they relate to ICS. You'll describe the delegation of authority process and implementing authorities, management by objectives. You'll be able to see the identification of organizational components, the command staff, the general staff, and ICS tools. You'll see different types of briefings and understand the various briefings and meeting structure. You'll be able to explain the flexibility within the ICS organizational structure, and most importantly, explain the transfer of command briefings as procedures. This shows the flexibility within the organization. The stated primary audience is the supervisory level of an emergency management training, response, or recovery effort. But here again, as we may support an event, we should be aware of these various authorities of command so that we may be most successful. The course length is estimated to be a bit longer, 4 hours. I didn't seem to think it took that long to complete. It is quite comprehensive, but again, you can complete it at your own pace and stop in the middle and take breaks as you need or pick it up on another day. It's entirely up to you. Okay, first things first, there's a little administrative work that we need to do in order for you to take the FEMA training, and that's obtaining your FEMA student registration. So gone are the days where we input our social security number as an ID. Of course, that caused all kinds of privacy concerns. Here you will obtain a student ID number, much like your FRN FCC number. The process is fairly straightforward, as you will see. The first thing you'll do is you'll enter this link, and this information will be available in PowerPoint form, or you can also search FEMA Training Student ID to find the website and the location of this. But it's https://cdp.dhs.gov FEMA ID. That's all it takes. Once you're at this site, you'll select the button on the right, Register for a FEMA SID, which I assume will be your first one. If you already have a FEMA ID, perhaps you've taken some training in the past, then of course you can log in on the left. But I'll assume most of you that are watching will register for your FEMA student ID for the first time, and this is where you would sign on. After you enter this button and you go to the next page, this is where you'll set up your profile. And it's similar to setting up any other profile that you've had for an organization or perhaps a testing environment, much like the FCC. Your name, your contact information, your email, security questions, so that if you lose your password, it can prompt you for security questions that you can answer to get right back in, and then set up your password. And this is most important so that you can access this training system as you need to. Fairly straightforward. You won't find much problem in doing this. After you complete this phase of the process, watch your email. Look for in your spam account perhaps, or your regular email. Whatever email you set up on your profile, you will receive an email notification from the Department of Homeland Security. It'll have quite a long email address. And in this case, mine came from this FEMA ID help at cpdemail.dhs.gov. So that's the one you need to be on the lookout for. So it's not trash when you see this. When you open it up, it'll say, "Dear John Smith, you've successfully registered for your FEMA ID. Please save your FEMA ID student number in a safe place." And it'll be a number much like this, where you have 10 digits that are given to you. That is going to be your FEMA ID student number. So it's sent via email. Write it down, keep it in a safe place. You'll need it later. Okay, it's time for the training. Now you've got your ID, let's start some of the training. The training is available again on a URL called training.fema.gov. You can search for it, or there is the URL that you can type into your browser. Obtaining the training is, you'll want to follow this methodology. There's one of two ways you can do this, but realize there's more than just these two courses out there, and you'll want to target the two courses you want to take for the training. The first course we're looking at, of course, is IS-100, the Introduction to the Incident Command System. So you can scroll over the Independent Study hot link, and when you do this, the second page will pop up, and you can see the IS-100, where you'll select. So it's like a hovering type affair. You double-click in this area, and it will launch the course. Now, some of our skills of dexterity and hovering around hot links are not so good. At least that's what I found with myself. Some of the younger generation can do this a lot quicker than I can. So I use an alternative method where I just use the search bar feature and I put in the course I want. And of course, these are listed in our presentation. So IS 100C, hit the search icon, and there is my course lining up. And I can just double click that. That's easier for me, but you can do it both ways to get you into the training module that you'll take. Okay? Fairly simple and straightforward. Once you're at the launch page, I call this the launch page for your online training, and every one of the courses you take is set up like this. Very, very simple, but it's structured so you'll get used to the structure. There'll be options for you to download classroom materials, take the course, and then take the final exam. I suggest you click and download the materials first. You can save these on your hard drive of your computer. You can print them out if you like to. I like to save them because I'm creating my own library of materials so that I can refer to it later should I need to, rather than relaunching the course. You don't have to download the materials if you want. You can do that subsequently, but I downloaded the materials so I would have them available to look at. After you've reached that point, it's time now to take the course. Very simple. Click this hot link that says Interactive Web-Based Course. Quite simple. You'll launch to a page that looks like this, and again, very straightforward. It will give you a course number that we're taking, and of course here we're talking about the IS 100 Introduction to Incident Command System, which we've been talking about. So it's very apparent you're in the right area. Once you're there, you can again click to advance your pages so it has nice features to move forward and back should you need. They also give you one more opportunity to download the training materials if you like, so very user-friendly. Up in the upper right, there is an area for glossary. If there's a term that is not quite understood or you need some more detail, you can hit this at any time, or a help section. Very user-friendly and very comprehensive. Now, with all government agencies, they have a huge amount of acronyms, and this training meets that level of expectation also. But they're not new to us. I think most of these are fairly well explanatory. An EOP, Emergency Operations Plan. Most of us have heard about FEMA. I've talked to you about the Incident Command System. There's an Incident Command Post, an NGO, a non-government agency, the NIMS, the National Emergency Management System, Standard Operating Guidelines, and I think all of us have heard about SOP, Standard Operating Procedures. Okay, that takes us to the crux of the course. What I'm going to provide next is an overview providing you the highlights of the course. Now, this is not meant to substitute for the course at all. It's just to give you a flavor for what is taught in the course. There's so much detail in here that you'll want to fully participate and take advantage of the course. But this will give you the general topics that you will be aware of when you take the training and they come into play. As you pull up the next page, I want to draw your attention to what is offered to you in taking the training. The training is comprised of video segments that you watch, key learning points that are provided to summarize your learning, as well as knowledge checks throughout the course and presentation. This is a very robust learning module, and it's not just one methodology where a student can get bored. So they use various techniques and visuals and training methods to keep the content lively and to increase your knowledge. So this is what you'll be seeing, some video segments, key learning points, and opportunities to check your learning. I think you'll like the flavor that it provides. The first section that's covered in the course talks about what is the National Incident Management System. And of course, this talks about a systematic, proactive approach that deals with government agencies, non-government agencies, the private sector, and how we can all work together in order to respond to an event or a national emergency. It's organized in three major components. You'll learn about resource management, command and coordination, including the incident command system, and communication and information management. In summary, I like these key words or these key takeaways for this paragraph. It's a systematic, proactive approach to work together. That's how I've condensed that slide down to just a few sentences. Systematic, productive approach to work together. The next section covers the concept of the whole community approach. Now, what's that? We have a nice graphic here that shows non-government agencies, higher education, agriculture, local government, public works, law enforcement, healthcare, faith-based groups, on and on. We in the amateur radio world fall into this sphere of resources. And the whole government approach ensures that solutions that serve the entire community are implemented, and that resources of the different members of the community bring to the table their skills and technologies in a most efficient manner. The incident command system, which we're talking about in this module, is used for all kinds of incidents and all types of organizations, from the simple to the complex. It is a standardized approach, and so again, we have great order and accountability into the process, and not only can be used for emergencies, but non-emergencies as well, perhaps planned events. It enables a coordinated response to the mission plan and allows common processes for completing the process. The next section is on communications, and you'll see off to the right, we have a don't go there with the 10 code. Very similar to our amateur radio protocols. We want to decomplexify communications. So codes and 10 codes and such are not part of the communication process. We all understand the benefits of speaking clearly and in simple words and methodologies. And this will help us in order to afford better focus on our organizational functions, our resource descriptions, and our facilities. The takeaways here: communication should always use common terms, and organizations should avoid using complex terminology or conversations. Let's talk about the benefits of the incident command system. The course reviews, well, why do we do this? What benefits do we get out of having this structure? Well, clearly, the takeaways are very action-oriented verbs. Clarifying the chain of command. We need to know who's in charge and the supervision responsibilities. Why? To improve accountability. We want to leverage inoperable communication systems to plain language and improve our communications. We want to provide an orderly and systematic planning process, implementing a common and flexible pre-designed management structure, and fostering cooperation between diverse disciplines and agencies. These things in place will yield a greater result as we plan to support and respond to these very critical times. The major functions of the incident command system are in 5 areas: the command, the operations, planning, logistics, and finance administration. These functions apply to incidents of all sizes, including both planned events and those that occur without warning. The major functional areas can be further definitized as: what is the incident command? Well, it sets the incident objective and the strategies, the priorities, and the overall responsibility for the incident. So here's the strategy set, and then who's accountable. The operations conducts the objectives and focuses on tactics, very tactically oriented, and directs operational resources. Planning supports the incident planning process by tracking resources, collecting and analyzing data, and maintaining documentation. Logistics, quite important, arranges for the resources needed to support the achievement of the incident response. And lastly, finance administration monitors the various costs and resources, provides accounting and feedback to ensure we're accountable to the response of the project. Command and coordination consists of 4 overreaching areas of responsibility. These are the direct tactical response to save lives. First things first, stabilize the incident, protect property and the environment. Then there's incident support through resource acquisition, information gathering, and interagency coordination. Policy guidance and senior level decision making is third. And last, outreach and communication with the media and public to keep them informed. When communication lines are open and we have transparency, it reduces fear and improves the overall result to handling a situation. That wraps up the first module. Very straightforward, and the topics may not be a surprise to you, but reinforcing them through your learning will help ingrain you with a greater sense of knowledge and accountability about this important course. The next course, course number 200, deals with the actual initial response to an incident. So let's jump into this. Similarly structured as before, with video segments. Here there'll be some case study reviews where they'll give you an incident that's happened and provide you the opportunities to select choices in how you would respond, and then knowledge checks along the way to see how your learning is coming along. In this area, they talk about some very critical structures in how to respond to a situation. And again, for those of you who have served in a branch of the military, this is not new news to you. Chain of command. It's the official hierarchy of authority that dictates who is in charge of whom and whom permission must be asked. So without this order, there would be chaos. And that's what's important to understand. The chain of command is vital in this type of incident response. We'll talk about the orderly line of authority, which is used for the flow of tasks, assignments, and resource requests. What is that line of authority? And then how the line of authority can flow through the organizational structure. The chain of command also allows the coordination of different individuals and groups to engage in task specialization in order to accomplish organizational goals. So there can be coordination and cooperation that occurs horizontally, but still maintaining the orderly line of authority as far as the task to be completed. So again, the takeaways are an official hierarchy with an orderly line of authority that flows down through the organizational structure that permits the coordination in order to accomplish the goals. That's how I would put it in a sentence. The next topic is called unity of command. A little bit different, but that means that each individual involved in an incident will be assigned and report to only one supervisor. So the unity of command clears up many of those potential communication problems that may exist when managing incidents or people. So the chain of command and the unity of command go hand in hand in order to ensure a clear reporting relationship and response to a situation. The third topic is called unified command. Again, a very close sounding word, but a unified command is what is typically in place when there's a large situation that may be addressed. When there's no one jurisdiction or agency or organization that has the resources to manage an incident on its own, then a unified command may be established. Here, there's no one commander. The unified command can allocate resources regardless of ownership or location. So this allows the various responsible agencies to manage an incident together by establishing a common set of incident objectives and strategies. It allows the commanders to make joint decisions, and it maintains a unity of command where still each employee only reports to one supervisor. So you get the best of the structure, yet you're able to pool together various resources in a unified nature to respond. Lines of communication are reinforced throughout the presentation. Formal lines follow lines of authority, However, information concerning an incident or event can be passed horizontally or vertically within the organization without restriction. So we don't want to restrict the flow of information because that knowledge can be used by others within the incident response. So formal communications follow the lines of authority. However, information concerning the incident can be passed horizontally or vertically within the organization without restriction. The next section, I've summarized an area of other key elements in the training module, those including using common terminology that allows a diverse incident management situation and supports entities to work together. The organizational structure, we've covered that with the 5 areas. The concept of span of control. What is optimum for managing an incident? Is it 1 supervisor to 5 subordinates? Perhaps it's 1 to 7. But you don't want the span of control so wide that you cannot be effective. 1 to 5 is typically a good number for effective incident management. Managing the span of control is done on a modular basis, so this information is helpful for the supervisory folks. It works by spanning the control and accomplishing by ensuring that resources are formalized into teams, divisions, groups, and alike in order to manage the situation that they're tasked with. The last section of the key elements is titles. And we're not supposed to get hung up on titles, but the concept here is the uniform use of titles so that when we're talking within an organization of a director or a supervisor, it has the same meaning across the instance, so there won't be confusion. And so it talks about that in the training. I found what's really important in both of these training modules is the discipline structure that it brings forth. I like this because I like order and I see the benefits of it. In this module, we'll talk about the delegation of authority process because there are situations where perhaps an individual who's vested with authority is not present or it cannot be reached. And so there's delegation of authorities that are established. Ideally, delegations of authority are established in writing, and so there's no question. There's also scope of authority. This is important to understand what are the boundaries of what can be done in a delegation or with an individual. What are those policies and procedures that are permitted by this administrator or official? MBO, management by objectives. I think we've all been exposed to this and why it is so important to think about what are the objectives that we are trying to accomplish and then managing to those. That's how we can best be measured. And so as objectives are clearly detailed, we can work towards them and measure against them. The 4th bullet is preparedness plans and agreements. The module reinforces the importance of being prepared, being ready, not called up with nothing ready, nothing that you can exercise or nothing that you can move forward with to respond effectively. This is why federal, state, and emergency operations put in plans in place, and they have practice drills. We've participated in practice communication drills. That's the reason for that. We want to be prepared to meet the challenges that may come during an incident. The section talks about the concept of communication briefings and the levels that are typically used in an incident response. There are staff level briefings that are provided to the various non-operational and support tasks at the incident command level or the base. There's field level briefings which are delivered to the individuals or crews down at the ground level of the organization and responding to the site, those most near the incident. And section level briefings which are delivered to an entire section and the operational briefing period. So each of these organizational briefings may have a different flavor depending on the audience, but that's what you'll see as far as variances in communication briefing. The Incident Command System initial response uses a risk-based model in order to respond. It's ranked from type 1 to type 5, with type 1 being the most critical. Type 5 responses are typically local, village, or township levels. Type 4, city, county, fire district levels. 3, state, territory, tribal, metropolitan levels. Type 2, national, or even state level, regional, levels and type 1 national and state level emergencies. So if you hear a type 1 incident, that is the most critical, and resources amassing over 1,000 people could be mobilized to support such an incident. If you look at the inverted pyramid, this gives you a good representation of how you would respond to a level of the incident. So type 1 is on the top here, and you can see the number of resources depicted, also by the amount of time that may be needed to respond. And so with great complexity and the level of high risk, type 1 will require the most incidents. As you move down the risk model, type 5 requires the least. They note that types 1 through 3 are the most common incidents that are dealt with. Well, you've completed the training, and I hope you've enjoyed it as you've completed it. This is just an overview, but you're not done yet. You're saying, wow, I need a break. Well, you can take a break, but you're also getting ready to take the final exam. Remember when I talked about having the student ID number? This is where you'll need that number for your final exam and certification process. Again, very straightforward and simple. Keep calm and pass your exams. Let's talk about the process. You go back into the course launch page, what we saw earlier in the presentation, and you'll note that I mentioned the classroom materials you can download, as well as taking the course itself, and then you'll also notice the taking the final exam link. You'll click on that this time, and a pop-up window will emerge that will ask you for your student ID number. That's the number that came in your email that you'll enter, that 10-digit number, along with your last name. After you enter that number, you'll hit I agree, and that will start you in the exam process. Now, the exam process is very straightforward. It's multiple choice, and in course 100, there are 25 multiple choice questions. There are no trick questions. The test is not designed that way. It's to test your knowledge of what you've learned. And every answer and every question was provided in the training materials. So there are truly no surprises. Now, as you work, you're going to say, well, what do I need to pass? And you'll need a 75% pass rate in order to pass the exam, but you can do it. Here's a typical question. Which NIMS management characteristic refers to personnel requested through the appropriate authority established resource management system? And you'll select the answer there. Very simple. Course number 200 contains a smaller number of questions, so there are benefits in completing the second course. Here again, you must complete 75% accurately in order to get credit, but you complete them in the same way. There are multiple choice questions, and mostly they are definitional as far as structure. So the instant command system is, and pick the best answer. No trick questions, very straightforward. After you complete the exam, and I'm sure you're going to pass, you'll get a link to a very nice certificate that's issued by FEMA, the Emergency Management Institute, that'll have your name printed on it, as well as the course and the date that you completed the training. So this serves as your certificate of achievement and recognition for the effort you put in to broaden your knowledge. So at this point, I just want to provide my contact information should you have any questions regarding the training. This is part one, where we covered the first two of the modules. If there is interest, we can cover the other two, so I'll look forward to your feedback in providing overviews on those two modules. My email is scott.kg9v@gmail.com. That's where your questions can be addressed, and of course, I'll be happy to answer those for you any way I can. I'd like to give a special recognition to the Department of Homeland Security and the FEMA Emergency Management Training. And it's provided to us all free of charge. We have the opportunity to avail ourselves of it, and I think we should take advantage of it. So with that knowledge is power, and I know all of you should believe in lifelong learning. So even though a lot of us are the school years that we attended years ago are much in our rearview mirror, we can look forward to keeping our brain cells moving and engaging in training. And this is an excellent way to do it, which is in harmony with the amateur radio hobby that we so enjoy. So that wraps up our overview of the Fema training module. I hope you have enjoyed the training. And again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And best of luck to you as you continue your training in order to be prepared to support amateur radio as we support preparedness in our community. Thank you.
Parks on the air calling CQ 20 meters.